Hello, flower babies. We're at season 2 of the podcast. I know, I'm sorry. I know it's been a long journey. Like, I'm a senior, I'm about to graduate in December. So it's just been a lot leading up to this moment. But I finally found that free time to just be able to express my mind. And this is season 2 of my podcast titled Feels. So, again, if you're new here, I'm Blossom. And I created this podcast to be able to articulate myself and express myself more. But this season, we will have more guests because in my first season, it was just me. In this season, we're going to have more people, but I'm going to start it out with just me. And I've grown a lot since our first podcast, and I'm going to be more honest. Like, I think that was the biggest barrier to creating my podcast was I wanted to appear as if things didn't hurt me. And it's like true healing is being honest about our pain. But yeah, I've understood that. And in these podcasts in season 2, they're going to be a little bit more vulnerable. Okay. And not vulnerable in a space where I'm like telling like personal information, but like more vulnerable in a space where I'm authentic, more authentic with my expression. Like I'm not holding anything back, and I'm not judging myself for what I have to say. I feel like in my first podcast I would listen and cringe, but it's like those are my stories, and those stories are going to be able to inspire and uplift other people. Anyways, that was my introduction. So in this podcast, we're going to talk about speaking up for ourselves. And this is something that I've struggled with for years. And at 22 years old, I can say that I finally know how to speak up for myself. Oh, that's confirmation. If you can hear in the background, I do have a throat chakra meditation plan. So I've made this podcast with intention, but also somebody just texted me right after I said that. So I was like, confirmation, if you can hear that. Zoom has this thing where like you can't really hear things in the background. So if you don't hear the meditation, it's okay. I just hope that it's not too loud. Okay. But yeah, like at 22 years old, I can finally say that I know how to speak up for myself. And speaking up for yourself is very important because your feelings matter. And what I've learned is that you have to advocate for yourself always. Advocating for yourself is a form of self-love. Speaking up for yourself is a form of self-love. A lot of times we're taught that it's rude or it's mean or we're not being polite if we tell somebody that they got us messed up. But it's like you have to speak up. You know that old saying, I used to always hear this when I was younger, but it made a lot more sense when I got older. I would hear people say all the time that a closed mouth does not get fed. And that's very true. Very, very true. So if you're not speaking up for yourself and your needs and setting boundaries and expressing what you will and will not tolerate, then you can't expect people to know how to treat you, because you're not setting those boundaries. And a lot of times people will walk all over you. They will walk all over you when you don't speak up for yourself. And I've experienced that several times in my life, probably more times than I could count because, I didn't want to speak up because I didn't want to appear rude. Like I had a fear. Now that I'm older, I can understand that I've had a fear of being a mean person. And I'm like, where did that fear stem from? And I go back to my childhood and it stemmed from, my aunt who raised me, who always tried to make me feel like I was mean. And when I look back at those instances, in those situations, I was putting myself first. So let's say I had something that I didn't want to share. I didn't want to share with my little cousin. So I was considered mean. Or if I wasn't in the mood, I was considered mean. Anytime I put myself first, I was taught that I was mean. So that created that fear. And that is why it took me a long time to speak up for myself because I didn't want to come off mean. I wanted to be likable. I wanted to, get along with every person. I didn't want to be on their bad side. But what I realized in that is that it's not a way to live because a lot of times you get sucked into people pleasing. You start doing things that are not in alignment with your character because you're trying to get validation from people who really don't even care about you to begin with. That's something that I've come to terms with. But let's get into why we don't speak up. So, number one, childhood, like I just talked about, when you have a fear of being seen a certain way, it can stop you from speaking up. But also, we don't speak up because when we are told, like, to speak up, we're met with a contradiction. How many times have, when you were younger, your parents told you to tell them how you feel, and then when you tried, you got in trouble, or you were seen as disrespectful or seen as talking back? So we learned that advocating for ourselves is wrong, or there's going to be a consequence if we advocate for ourselves. Like whenever I first started speaking up for myself, there was this fear of I'm not a good person anymore. But you're the person you are, your character, that's not gonna change if you speak up for yourself. Because like I said, speaking up for yourself is a form of self-love. Like, if people wanna label you as a villain or a mean person for speaking up for yourself, that's them, and that's actually manipulation, because you're not a mean person for having boundaries, for telling people that you don't like something. You're a human being. You have likes, you have dislikes, and it's okay to express that, you know? And I feel like we don't really clear a lot from our childhood. An analogy that's coming to mind is like, when you clear, like, for example, when you clear the apps out of your phone, they're gone, right? A lot of times we don't clear our childhood trauma or those messages from our subconscious mind, so they kind of just are on repeat. It's like this broken record that we don't even know this playing because we can't hear it, you know? And it's like, it's time to take that record off and put a new one on. Cause you know what I'm hearing? Girl, put your records on. Tell me your favorite song. You go ahead, let your hair down. Had to break out in song a little bit. Somebody tried to call me. I'm sorry if y'all heard that, but yeah. Um anyways, I'm sorry about that little interruption. Um that's how I'm feeling, like relax into speaking up for yourself as well. I feel like we can't speak up for ourselves because there's a lot of anxiety behind it. Like, how many times have you tried to speak up for yourself and your heart was beating? You just felt like you just felt this wave of anxiety because you were taught that speaking up for yourself is going to come with some backlash. And you know what? Sometimes it can. Sometimes it can. But there's beauty in it. There's beauty in it. Okay. So we don't speak up for ourselves a lot of times, as I've mentioned, because of childhood trauma. But I don't even think it's just limited to that. I think it's environment, our environment. I was going to say environmental, but like our environmental spaces, like the rules. So you may have grown up in an environment where it's not safe to speak up for yourself because you could be abused, like physically, mentally, or in other ways that we're not going to discuss because that's not this type of podcast right now. But it's like you don't speak up for yourself because you learned that there's this backlash. And a lot of times that backlash is people not loving you or people not treating you right, or people like leaving. Like, that's also why a lot of people don't speak up. Like, I can think back to like past relationships that I've been in. Like, I was afraid to speak up because I thought that if I did, that person would leave me. But what I learned is if speaking up makes somebody leave you, they were never for you. If speaking up makes somebody mistreat you, they never really care for you. And this is for family as well. Like, people think of family as like they naturally care about you. But a wise person once told me, you got to look at family just like everybody else because they're people too. Okay. And sometimes it's our family that has conditioned us to believe that we shouldn't speak up for ourselves. But other times it's relationships. And a lot of times it's friendships, because have you ever tried to speak up for yourself and it turns into this huge argument because you're trying to let them know, hey, this hurts my feelings. And it can be hard for the other person to take sometimes. And I've felt that because I felt like I had a lot of friendships with people that just always wanted me to always be to blame, always want me to be the problem. And then when I started to speak up for myself, my friendship started to change. Like, people will enjoy you not speaking up for yourselves because they will enjoy you not speaking up for yourself because it benefits them because they can keep taking from you. They can keep doing what they want to do. Like, a lot of people will make you their emotional punching bag because you don't speak up for yourself. So that is why we don't speak up for ourselves. And I made this into some sections. So that was the first section, why we don't speak up for ourselves. So two, let's talk about the consequences of not speaking up for ourselves. And when you don't speak up for yourself, especially like when let's say, for example, you're in love with somebody and you don't let that person know, and then they get married and they have a family and you're mad. Like, you can't really be mad because you could have told that person how you felt. Like, communication is key. I know that, that's easier said than done, but it's true. Communication is key along with comprehension. And it's like, When you don't speak up for something that you want, how can you expect it to be yours? And this same thing applies for like manifestation. Let's say you live your life wanting things, but you never tell the universe you want it. Or if you do tell the universe, you don't fully believe it. So the consequences of not speaking up is not getting what you want out of life, not living a truly authentic and fruitful and fulfilling life because you're afraid of wanting what you want. Like a lot of times we're afraid of what we want. We're afraid of speaking up for what we want. And it's nothing to be afraid of. Because like I said, you're advocating for yourself. And number one, your feelings matter. Your feelings matter. Regardless of who tells you otherwise or who makes you feel otherwise, your feelings matter. Okay. Another one of the consequences of not speaking up is like having people like lie on you and spread rumors about you. And I always say to like pick and choose your battles wisely because sometimes you need to stay silent with a lie or a rumor. Sometimes you need to be unbothered, but there are some times where you do need to speak up for yourself and you need to advocate for yourself. You know, it's okay to let a person know that you don't like what they're saying. You can tell people things that they don't want to hear. I think when you're just a naturally like respectful person, you try to sugarcoat things you tell people when you should just be blatantly honest, you know, and let them know. Because I promise you, people will be honest with you. They'll tell you how they feel. So why won't you tell them how you feel? A lot of times we don't speak up because we're doing it out of politeness. We're assuming that the other person is gonna know or understand, but it's like, no, no, you have to speak up. Have you ever heard those quotes? And it's like, how is another person going to know how you feel if you don't tell them? And I feel like this applies to friendships too. Like, I can even look back and look at my mistakes and my friendships of having issues and then not saying anything about it and then letting it grow. And vice versa. I've had friends that do that. I've had friendships and even relationships where that has happened. And I even experienced it sometimes with family, like people are mad at me for something that I don't even know they're mad about. So again, communication is key. The consequences of not speaking up is also losing beautiful relationships. You know, when you don't speak up and say how you really feel, you can miss out on good people. And you can also miss out on good opportunities if you don't want to advocate for yourself. Let's say you're a creative or you're somebody who wants to be in the public eye or you want to be a doctor or a writer and there's like a convention you go to. And again, these are just analogies and scenarios I'm making up, okay? But it's like you go somewhere and it's for you, that space is for you, and you shy away, or they say, "Who in here wants to be a doctor?" and you don't raise your hand. And then let's say one person did, and that person went on to become a doctor because they got into a certain program that would have been available had you signed up. Okay, the same thing goes for creative. Let's say they said, "Who's in here is creative?" and you didn't raise your hand, right? Again, this is just an example. And like the person that raised their hand, they got to work with Rihanna or Beyonce, and you're like, "What?" So those are really big consequences. You know, those are examples, but that's something that could happen. You know, metaphorically speaking, it could be something that could happen to you, and it doesn't have to be that exact thing, but something like that. Like, don't dim your light, you know? I feel like that goes back to point number one, why we don't speak up because we're dimming our light. Because a lot of times speaking up doesn't always have to do with like defending yourself. You know, it could be about putting yourself out there. So when you don't speak up for yourself, you miss out on opportunities and blessings that the universe sent to you because of fear. Okay. And that's something that you have to let go of. Let go of fear. Let go of being seen. Like, let go of the fear of being seen. That's what I meant to say. Let go of the fear of being seen. Because when you have a gift and when you have something so precious and valuable to share with the world, the universe is going to keep pushing it for you. They're going to keep putting you in situations like, for example, when I used to be scared to sing in front of people, because I'm not so much now, but when I was younger, there was so many opportunities like karaoke, poetry, just so many things where the universe was trying to get me to bring my gift out. Now it's so easy for me to do it, you know, because it's something that I've had practice with. So speaking up for yourself is going to take practice. You know, I used to want to sing, let's say it was like karaoke night. I wanted to, but I didn't. I didn't speak up when they asked who wanted to go or who wanted to sign up. Like, again, missing out on opportunities. And the consequences of not speaking up is not just missed opportunities, but like regret. You know, you're going to be looking back at what you could have done, but you didn't do. So don't live a life like that. Do the things that make you happy, even if it's scary. And speaking up for yourself, whether you're advocating for yourself or defending yourself or both, it matters because you matter and your feelings matter and your existence matters. Your dreams matter, okay? Your thoughts matter. You matter. And let's move on to the benefits of speaking up. So we've already talked about why we don't speak up, the consequences of not speaking up, and now we're going to look at the benefits. So the benefits of speaking up is living a life full of harmony. And this is not to say that you won't have mishaps or that people won't make you mad. It's just having this confidence and trust in yourself to be able to say, I'm going to be able to defend myself if somebody tries to come for me. I'm going to be able to let somebody know that I don't like that. I'm going to be able to set a boundary the first time, because how many times do we feel something and we don't say anything about it until months later, years later? So the benefits of speaking up is having better relationships, because then people know how to treat you. And if there are people who really want to stay in your life, they're going to take heed to those boundaries. They're going to respect your boundaries. Okay. They're going to understand them. So that's the benefit of speaking up, improving your relationships with people, because maybe they didn't know how you feel. Maybe it was confusion. Like I said, communication is key. I've been saying it throughout this podcast, but it really is. The benefits of speaking up is you clear up misunderstandings, because maybe you thought something happened that really didn't happen, and then you had a problem with that person just to find out that it was all made up in your head, or it was just all a misunderstanding. So that is the benefit of speaking up. Another benefit of speaking up is having blessings and opportunities come your way and being fulfilled and truly living in your purpose. That is a benefit of speaking up, because you are putting yourself in a position to win. The benefits of speaking up is you set yourself up in a position to win. And guess what? Sometimes when you speak up, some people won't like that. Some people will try to manipulate you and say you're mean or rude. Some people will try to, talk bad about you afterwards, but you have to understand that who you are matters. How you feel matters. How other people make you feel matters. The energy and the vibes you pick up on matters. Your voice matters, okay? Speak up for yourself, okay? Because you deserve to live a life where you're truly happy and content, not a life where you're full of anxiety and holding on to grudges and passive aggressiveness, because it's not a pleasant feeling. And I know from experience, having those feelings and just feeling clogged, it's like the benefits of speaking up, it's like you feel free like a river that's flowing, because you know that what you're saying matters, and you have a confidence in knowing that. Like, I could tell y'all a short little story. Like, I remember working, right? And there's this girl I work with, and I don't think she likes me that much. I mean, we never really spoken, but it's just like, when you could feel the tension when somebody doesn't like you, even if you didn't do anything to them, right? And it's like she kept bumping into me, when I was working. And the first couple of times I let it slide, because it is a small space in which I work. So I'm like, okay, maybe it's just because it's a lot of people. But then it got to the point where she purposely came near me just to do it. And I told her, I said it very sternly, stop bumping into people. You need to learn how to say, excuse me. I said that. And guess what? She got mad. But the next time she said, excuse me. So the benefits of speaking up is respect comes with that, because if you don't speak up, you're going to have people walking all over you. If I didn't speak up, she would have continued to bump into me, and I would have continued to be mad and hold grudges. But the benefits of speaking up is you can stop toxicity right in its tracks. You can stop it. You can put your foot down and say, no, you're not going to cross this line with me. And that's the beauty of it, because you're protecting yourself. Speaking up for yourself is it's self-preservation. It's self-love. Okay. Yeah, that's why we don't speak up, the consequences of not speaking up, and the benefits of speaking up. So this podcast was a little bit more organized than my other ones, because I literally have notes right here. But thank you all for the 1K on YouTube again, for my tarot subscribers, even people who subscribe for all of my content, because I know that some people like my podcast, while some people like my tarot, while other people like the motivational videos. But whatever it is, I love all of you. And thank you so much for giving me this platform, because man, I used to be so scared to shine my light. And Thank y'all for just reminding me of that every single day. Mwah. Peace.